So like guitars, you can never really have enough turnarounds. So in this lesson, I'm just going to show you how to take one of the classic all-time Delta blues turnarounds and turn it into something new using just a few simple tritone chord substitutions. So here's our starting point, and this is one of the classic turnarounds you hear everywhere in the Delta blues, Chicago blues, you name it. And it sounds like this. And it takes place in the last two bars of the blues. So if you're playing a 12-bar blues, it's going to happen in bars 11 and 12. If you're playing an 8-bar blues, it's going to happen in bars 7 and 8. And the idea is on the bottom, you've got this bass line. Now sometimes you hear it going down and then a bass run coming up. Like that. We're going to start with a really simple version. So you're in E, and you're going to go from E to the flat 7 of E, 6, flat 6, back to the root twice, and then up to the root of a B7 chord. So and on top, you've got this recurring note. And then a little blues lick. And so you're really just repeating the root on top, picking it with your ring finger. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So that is the standard turnaround we're going to use as our point of departure. And what we're going to do is add in these additional chords. So we're going to stick to this idea of keeping this, these kind of lick, this really simple move on top with the one repeated note and the blues lick. And then the first step is to change what the bass is doing. From here, we'll go over here, and then over here. So we've still got the same two bars, and we're still starting out by going root, flat 7, and 6 of E, but then we're going to go over here to the 3rd fret on the low string, 2nd fret, and then 3rd fret on the 5th string, and down a fret. And what we're doing now is implying a completely different chord progression. This we can hear basically as a kind of dressed up version of just sitting on E for a bar and a half and then going to B7. But now we're implying like a half step into this sound, like a C sharp 7, sharp 9, and then half stepping into an F sharp 7 here, and then half stepping into a B7 here, and going to E. And so if you ignore all the half steps for just a second, we're really playing E, C sharp 7, F sharp 7, B7. That's what that bass line is implying. And the reason that works is because every chord we're hitting, every new chord we're adding in is the 5 of the next chord. If we work backwards, it's a little easier to think about it. If we're on an E chord, the 5 of E is B7. That's already in the turnaround. The 5 of B7 is F sharp. And then the 5 of F sharp is C sharp 7. So if we start an E and we jump up to C sharp 7, it doesn't really belong there, but it makes sense when we get to the F sharp 7, which also doesn't belong there, but makes sense when we get to the B7, which makes sense because it's the 5 of E. Okay, so with that in mind as the skeleton of what we're doing, now we've got these half steps into each chord, just sitting on the B. And these half steps are justified by this idea of tritone substitutions, which briefly is the idea that anytime you have a dominant chord you want to use, you can substitute the dominant chord with the root a tritone away, or 3 whole steps away. So from D down to G sharp is 3 whole steps, or a tritone. And this matters because now we can say, well, why does D7 lead to C sharp 7? Well, because the tritone substitution of D7 is G sharp 7. G sharp 7 is the 5 of C sharp. So if this tritone substitution, G sharp, is the 5 of C sharp, then D, which if you flip it on its head, is the tritone substitution for G sharp, will also be the dominant of C sharp. And so you can always half step into a dominant chord from a half step above because it's basically working as the 5 of whatever chord you end up on. So this is resolving to C sharp, and then G is resolving by half step to F sharp, and then C is resolving by half step to B7, and then down to E. So now we can take this bass line and we can harmonize it with these dominant chords. And all I'm doing is grabbing each chord with my thumb, index, and middle finger. And then here the root's going to the 6th string. My index and middle stay on the 4th and 3rd string. Then back over to the 5th, 4th, and 3rd string. So what happens to this part that we haven't talked about for a while? Well, if we leave out the 4th string, we can just grab either the 5th and the 3rd string, thumb index, and then get the high string with the ring finger, or we can use the 6th string, the 3rd string, and the high string, again using thumb, index, and middle. So before we bring in the ring finger, we could have which is enough to define each chord. And then we can put our melody back in on top. And then here's our blues lick. And so as we're coming down, we're going to grab 3 strings, then just the high string, 3 strings, high string, 3 strings, high string, 3 strings, and then we're going to grab this note here, the D, along with the bottom of the G chord, F sharp chord, which makes it sound like an F sharp flat 13 or F sharp 7 augmented chord, however you want to call it. And then we're going to get to the B7 a little quicker, sort of anticipate on the and grab the, again, now this is the flat 7 and the root of B7 before the thumb comes in, and then we get back to the E. So all together we have so that is a way to take this turnaround and do this to it. And we could even go to the C7 as a way to get to the B7. Which is also cool. Now this turnaround works great for any kind of 12-bar blues in E. It's also really useful for an 8-bar blues in E like Trouble in Mind, which is a tune that I'll be teaching over the next few months in my membership, the Fingerstyle 5. So if you're interested in developing your repertoire, working on your right hand coordination, starting to improvise, and learning how to start putting complete arrangements of tunes together, recommend checking out the Fingerstyle 5 at the link below or the link on screen. If you've got a question or a comment about today's lesson, please leave it down below. I would love to hear from you. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.